Hey everyone, stop what you are doing right now. Because what just happened in California is one of the most devastating self inflicted economic wounds in American history, and the politicians responsible are acting like they had nothing to do with it. Here is the scene. A company has been operating in the same California city for 115 years. Through two world wars, the Great Depression, the oil shocks of the 1970s, the 2008 financial crisis, through every single economic catastrophe of the modern era, they stayed. They paid taxes, they employed hundreds of workers, they kept the lights on, and then one day, the state of California handed them an $82 million fine, the largest environmental penalty in the history of that regulatory agency, and that was the last straw. Valero Energy is shutting down its Benicia refinery permanently. 115 years of continuous operation, gone. And when that refinery closes, the city of Benicia loses 20% of its entire annual budget in a single day. Not 10%, not 5%, 20%. Overnight. I am talking about one of the largest and most profitable energy companies in America being driven out of California by a regulatory regime so aggressive, so punishing, and so disconnected from economic reality that it made a 115-year-old operation mathematically impossible to sustain. And while Valero packs up and leaves, California drivers are already paying $5.96 per gallon at the pump, the highest in the nation, while drivers in Texas are paying $3.72 for the exact same gallon of gas. By the end of this video, you are going to understand exactly what happened, who is responsible, and why every single California driver is going to feel this closure in their wallet for years to come. Hit that subscribe button right now because this one goes extremely deep. Let us get into it. Let us start with what Valero actually is, because this is not some small regional operator that stumbled into a bad situation. Valero Energy is one of the largest independent petroleum refiners and marketers in the world. Headquartered in San Antonio, Texas, the company operates 15 refineries across the United States, Canada, and the United Kingdom, with a combined throughput capacity of approximately 3.2 million barrels per day. Last year, Valero generated revenues of over $140 billion. This is not a company that closes refineries because of a bad quarter. When Valero shuts something down permanently, it is because the math has become structurally impossible. The Benicia refinery sits on the northern edge of San Francisco Bay, about 30 miles northeast of the city. It has been in continuous operation since 1910, 115 years. The facility processes tens of thousands of barrels of crude oil every single day and produces gasoline, diesel, jet fuel, and other refined products that supply a significant portion of Northern California's fuel needs. It employs over 400 workers directly, unionized, high-wage, skilled industrial jobs. And through its property taxes and local economic activity, it has been the financial backbone of the city of Benicia for generations. And then California regulators decided to make an example of it. The Bay Area Air Quality Management District, the regional environmental regulatory body, hit Valero's Benicia facility with an $82 million penalty, the single largest fine in the history of that agency. The violations cited were related to emissions and equipment maintenance standards. And here is the part that reveals everything about how California's regulatory system actually operates. The fine was not designed to fix a problem. The fine was designed to send a message, and the message it sent was not the one the regulators intended. Valero's response was immediate and devastating. The company announced it would permanently close the Benicia refinery, not pay the fine and upgrade the equipment, not negotiate a compliance timeline, close it permanently. And when Valero's management explained their decision publicly, they did not mince words. They said California's regulatory framework and enforcement regime had made continued operation of the facility financially unsustainable. They said the math no longer worked. And when a company that processes 3.2 million barrels of crude oil per day says the math does not work in your state, you have a serious problem. Now let us talk about what this actually costs. Because the numbers here are staggering and they cascade in ways that most people are not thinking about. Start with Benicia. This is a city of approximately 28,000 people on the edge of San Francisco Bay. It is not a major metropolitan hub. It is a working-class community built around industry and the waterfront. And the Valero Refinery was single-handedly responsible for 20% of the city's entire annual budget. 20%. That is not a rounding error. That is the difference between a city that functions and a city that cannot pay its bills. Schools, roads, police, fire, parks, all of it funded in part by the tax revenue that Valero generated every single year for over a century. When that refinery closes, Benicia does not just lose a major employer, it loses the financial foundation it has been built on for generations. Then there are the 400-plus direct jobs. These are not minimum wage service positions. Refinery workers are skilled tradespeople, pipe fitters, electricians, control room operators, maintenance technicians, earning wages that support families, pay mortgages, and fuel the local economy. When those jobs disappear, the restaurants lose customers, the hardware stores lose contractors, the local tax base shrinks further, and the spiral begins. But here is the number that should concern every single person who drives a car in California. The Benicia closure does not happen in isolation. Just 1 year ago, Phillips 66 permanently closed its Los Angeles refinery. Two major California refineries gone within 12 months of each other. Combined, these two facilities processed approximately 250,000 barrels of crude oil per day, roughly 17% of California's total refining capacity. Gone. Permanently. California cannot get that capacity back quickly. Building a new refinery in California, assuming anyone were insane enough to try given the regulatory environment, would take a decade and cost billions of dollars. It is not going to happen. What does losing 17% of your refining capacity do to gasoline prices? You already know the answer because you are already living it. California drivers are paying $5.96 per gallon right now. The national average is significantly lower. Texas drivers are paying $3.72. That $2.24 gap between California and Texas is not random. It is the direct result of California systematically destroying its own energy infrastructure through regulatory overreach while simultaneously blocking the construction of replacement capacity. And here is what makes this story genuinely infuriating. Gasoline is not a luxury good. It is not something that affects only wealthy Californians who drive expensive cars. It is what gets working-class families to their jobs. It is what gets produce from farms to grocery stores. It is what gets packages delivered. It is what gets ambulances to emergencies. When gasoline prices go up in California, the cost of everything goes up in California. Every grocery item, every delivered package, every restaurant meal, all of it becomes more expensive. The people who feel that most acutely are not the politicians in Sacramento who created these conditions. They are the families already stretched thin by 3 years of inflation who cannot absorb another dollar per gallon. Now let us talk about Governor Gavin Newsom. Because the response from California's political leadership to this closure has been exactly what you would expect. Expressions of concern, promises to support affected workers, vague references to the clean energy transition. What you have not heard is any acknowledgement that California's regulatory regime drove this decision. Any admission that an $82 million fine on a facility that had been operating for 115 years might have been a contributing factor. Any recognition that destroying refining capacity without having replacement capacity ready is not an energy transition, it is an energy crisis. Newsom has spent years positioning California as a global leader in environmental policy, and on a theoretical level, reducing emissions from industrial facilities is a legitimate goal. But there is a difference between reducing emissions and making it mathematically impossible for a 115-year-old facility to continue operating. One is policy, the other is what just happened in Benicia. And here is the pattern that California's political leadership refuses to acknowledge. Valero is not alone. The list of major companies that have left California or dramatically reduced their California operations in recent years reads like a who's who of American industry. Elon Musk moved Tesla's headquarters from Palo Alto to Austin. SpaceX relocated to Texas. Public Storage moved its headquarters from Glendale to Frisco, Texas after 50 years. Yamaha Motor Company moved its U.S. headquarters from California to Georgia. Charles Schwab left San Francisco for Westlake, Texas. These are not coincidences. These are rational responses to a business environment that has become structurally hostile to industrial and commercial operations at scale. And every time one of these companies leaves, the same thing happens. The immediate jobs disappear, the tax base shrinks, the politicians express concern, and then they propose more of the same policies that drove the company out in the first place. It is not a strategy, it is a death spiral. Here is the bottom line. 115 years, through wars, depressions, oil embargoes, financial crises, and a global pandemic, Valero's Benicia refinery kept running. And it took California's regulatory apparatus, an $82 million fine, and an operating environment that made the math impossible to finally shut it down. The city of Benicia loses 20% of its budget. 400 skilled workers lose their jobs. California loses 17% of its refining capacity alongside the Phillips 66 closure, and every driver in the state pays more at the pump. Not because of global oil prices, not because of corporate greed, but because Sacramento decided that punishing a 115-year-old industrial facility was more important than keeping the lights on. The math does not care about press releases. It does not care about climate pledges. It cares about whether you can run a refinery profitably in the state of California. And Valero just told you the answer. I want to hear from you. Are you in California? Are you already feeling this at the pump? Do you think Newsom's energy policies are working, or is this the preview of something much worse? Drop it in the comments because this conversation matters more than any speech from Sacramento. If this video gave you something to think about, hit that like button and subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into the stories that are actually affecting your wallet and your future. Hit the notification bell so you do not miss what is coming next. Stay informed, stay engaged, and never stop following the money. See you in the next one.